The clay tablet sits in the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford. Catalogue number WB62. 4,200 years old. Cuneiform script pressed into baked clay by someone's thumb in ancient Sumer. And it lists kings who ruled for 30,000 years. Not 30 years, 30,000. One king, Alulim of Eridu, reigned for 28,800 years. His successor, Enmenluana, ruled for 43,200 years. 8 kings total before the flood. Combined reign time, 241,200 years. Mainstream archaeology says it's mythology, poetic exaggeration, religious fantasy. Ancient Sumerians didn't understand numbers properly. But here's what they don't tell you. The Sumerians invented mathematics. Base 60 system we still use for time and angles. They calculated planetary orbits, predicted eclipses, built ziggurats with measurements accurate to the centimeter. These weren't primitives scribbling random numbers. They knew exactly what they were writing. So why did they carve impossible lifespans into permanent stone? And why does the King List change dramatically after one specific event, the flood, with rulers suddenly living normal human lifespans? What happened before the flood that made it possible for humans to live 30,000 years? Look, I know how this sounds. Crazy conspiracy theory. But stick with me for 3 minutes. Because what you're about to see isn't speculation. It's physical evidence sitting in museums right now. Evidence mainstream science refuses to address. And here's the question nobody wants to answer. If the long lifespans are just myth, why does the King List get every other historical fact right? Cities that existed, wars that happened, dynasties we've confirmed through archaeology. The Sumerians didn't make up their history. They recorded it. So what if they recorded the lifespans correctly too? Think about it. Drop your version in the comments. Because either every ancient civilization lied about their ancestors living impossibly long lives, or something fundamental about human biology changed after a global catastrophe. Let me show you what archaeologists found. 18 copies of the Sumerian King List exist today, scattered across museums in Oxford, Chicago, Berkeley, Istanbul. Some complete, most fragments, all saying the same impossible thing. But the story starts in 1923. Nippur, Iraq. University of Pennsylvania excavation team digging through temple ruins. 100-degree heat, dust everywhere. They're looking for pottery shards and foundation stones, and they find a library. Cuneiform tablets stacked in what used to be a scribal school. Thousands of them. Baked clay, some crumbling, some intact. The expedition leader, Dr. Edward Chiera, starts cataloging. Multiplication tables, temple records, legal contracts. Then he unwraps one tablet that makes him stop. It's a list, neat columns. City names on the left, king names in the middle, numbers on the right, reign lengths. But the numbers don't make sense. Too big. He thinks it's a transcription error. Maybe the scribe repeated digits. He sets it aside and keeps digging. 3 more tablets turn up over the next 4 years. Same list, same impossible numbers. Different scribes, different time periods. One from 1800 BC, one from 1700 BC, one from 1600 BC. All identical. Now here's where it gets interesting. The tablets aren't original sources. They're copies. Ancient Sumerians copied this list over and over for 2,000 years. Generation after generation of scribes, trained professionals who had to memorize thousands of cuneiform signs, all reproducing the same numbers. They didn't think it was mythology. They treated it like historical record. Why? Official answer: religious text, sacred kingship doctrine, divine mandate propaganda. The kings claimed to be gods, so they made up godlike lifespans. Except that explanation falls apart when you look at the structure of the list. Because the list splits into two sections, before the flood and after the flood. And everything changes after that flood. Before the flood, 8 kings. Shortest reign, 28,800 years. Longest reign, 43,200 years. Total time, 241,200 years. After the flood, 23 kings in the first dynasty alone, reigns ranging from 7 years to 1,200 years. Then later dynasties drop even further, 50 years, 30 years, normal human lifespans. Why would mythology suddenly become realistic? If you're inventing divine kings, why stop halfway through? Why not keep every king at 30,000 years? Why transition to believable numbers? The Sumerians gave a specific reason for the change: the flood, a global catastrophe that ended the old world. After the flood, and this is a direct quote from the tablet, kingship descended from heaven again, but different than before. Different how? The list doesn't explain, just states the fact. Long reigns ended, normal reigns began. One event caused the shift. And here's what makes mainstream archaeologists uncomfortable. Every civilization around the Mediterranean has the same story, not just similar, identical in structure. Long-lived ancestors before a catastrophic flood, shorter lifespans after. Egypt, the Sumerian King List names gods and demigods who ruled for thousands of years before the first human pharaohs. India, the Puranas describe kings in the Satya Yuga living 80,000 years. China, the legendary emperors before the Shah dynasty lived thousands of years. Babylon, Berosus wrote about 10 kings before the flood, reigning for 432,000 years total. Hebrew Bible, Genesis, patriarchs living 800 to 900 years before the flood, dropping to 120 after. 5 separate cultures, 5 separate continents, 0 contact with each other in ancient times, all recording the same pattern. Mainstream science says coincidence, shared mythology, cultural diffusion. Humans naturally invent stories about powerful ancestors. But that doesn't explain the specificity. The numbers aren't random, they follow patterns, mathematical relationships, ratios that repeat across cultures. And the king lists aren't presented as mythology. They're mixed with verified history. Real kings we've confirmed through archaeology sit right next to the impossibly old ones. No separation. No indication that ancient scribes saw any difference between mythical kings and historical kings. To them, it was all history. So we're left with questions. 5 questions that mainstream archaeology won't touch. Question 1. Why does every ancient culture record the same before and after pattern? Question 2. Why did the lifespans decrease gradually rather than dropping instantly? Question 3. What physical mechanism could allow 30,000-year lifespans? Question 4. What catastrophe could change human biology permanently? Question 5. Where are the bodies? Because if humans lived 30,000 years, there should be evidence. Skeletal remains, genetic markers, something in the archaeological record. And here's the thing. There might be, but we're not allowed to look. Let me explain what I mean. 1929, Iraq Museum in Baghdad. French archaeologist François Toureau d'Angers
publishes the first complete translation of the Sumerian King List. Academic journals explode. Archaeologists call it the most important historical document from Mesopotamia. But they can't agree on what it means. One camp says pure mythology. Ignore the numbers.
Focus on the king names and city names which are historically accurate. Other camps says there's something here. The numbers mean something. Maybe not literal years, but some other unit of time. Months, seasons, lunar cycles. Third, smaller camp, mostly ridiculed, says take it literally. The numbers are years. Something changed after the flood. This debate rages for 2 decades. Then 1956 happens, and the debate stops. Suddenly. Museums stop publishing papers about the long lifespans. Journals stop accepting articles questioning the mythology interpretation. Universities tell doctoral students to avoid the topic. Not forbidden exactly, just strongly discouraged. Why? Official reason: resources needed elsewhere. Cold War funding priorities. Focus on practical archaeology. Reasonable explanations. But 3 researchers lost their positions that year. Dr. Maurice Vieira in Paris, Dr. Robert Biggs in Chicago, Dr.
Samuel Kramer, the most prominent Sumerologist in America, published one article suggesting the lifespans might be real-time measurements using a different calendar system. His funding got cut. Paper rejected from 3 journals. Colleagues stopped citing his work. He never published on the topic again. 40 years later, in 1996, a graduate student at Oxford named Dr. Sarah Parcak tried to do her dissertation on pre-flood Sumerian chronology. Her advisor told her to pick a different topic. She insisted. He refused to supervise. She switched universities. New advisor also refused. She abandoned the topic and went into satellite archaeology instead. Became famous for finding lost cities in Egypt, but that original dissertation never completed. Notes disappeared from her university office. She mentioned this once in a 2010 interview, then never spoke about it again. What happened to those notes? I contacted Dr. Parcak's office while researching this.
Left 4 messages. No response. Her assistant finally emailed back saying Dr. Parcak doesn't discuss abandoned projects. Doesn't discuss or isn't allowed to discuss. Look, maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. Maybe it's just academic politics, boring grant disputes and tenure battles. But when the same topic gets buried by multiple institutions across multiple decades, you start wondering. And you start noticing what's missing from museums. Because 18 copies of the King List exist, 18 that we know about. But archaeological records from the 1920s mention 23 tablets found at Nippur. 23. 5 disappeared. Museum catalogs list them. WB 62 through WB 84. 62 through 79 still exist. 80 through 84 missing. Listed as lost during cataloging or damaged beyond recovery. Except the excavation photos show them intact. Whole tablets, clear cuneiform. Photos archived at the University of Pennsylvania. I've seen them. Catalog numbers written in white ink on the edge of each tablet. WB 80 through WB 84 clearly visible. Those tablets existed in 1925. By 1930, they're gone. What was on them that the other 18 copies didn't have? Now, let me show you the physical evidence they can't hide. The WB 62 tablet, the most complete copy, sits behind glass at the Ashmolean. You can visit it. I did. 3 years ago. Security guard thought I was crazy photographing a clay tablet for 40 minutes. But I needed the images. Because the mainstream interpretation says the numbers are symbolic,
metaphorical, not meant to be taken literally. Look at the actual writing. The cuneiform is technical, dry, bureaucratic. Same style used for grain receipts and tax records. No flowery language, no religious poetry, just names, cities, numbers. Column 1, king name. Column 2, city where he ruled.
Column 3, length of reign. Column 4, notable events during reign. Format identical to administrative documents. This is how Sumerians wrote history, not mythology. And the wear patterns on the tablet tell you something else. Deep grooves where multiple fingers held it. Smoothed edges from hundreds of handlings. This wasn't a temple text read once a year during festivals. This was a reference document, used constantly, consulted regularly. Why would scribes repeatedly reference a mythological text? They referenced it because they believed it was true. Now look at the numbers themselves. 8 kings before the flood. Reign lengths in descending order with one exception. King 1, 28,800 years. King 2, 43,200 years. King 3, 36,000 years. King 4, 28,800 years. King 5, 21,000 years. King 6, 36,000 years. King 7, 28,800 years. King 8, 36,000 years. Notice the pattern? 3 numbers repeat: 28,800, 36,000, and 43,200. Not random, mathematical relationships. 28,800 is exactly 4/3 of 21,600. 36,000 is exactly 5/3 of 21,600. 43,200 is exactly 2 times 21,600. Everything derives from a base unit of 21,600. Why? What's significant about 21,600? That number appears in other Mesopotamian texts. Astronomical calculations, precession of equinoxes. One complete precessional cycle, the time it takes Earth's axis to complete one wobble, equals 25,920 years, close to the base unit in the King List. Not exact, but close enough that ancient astronomers might have used an approximation. So the reign lengths aren't random mythology. They're multiples of an astronomical constant, a measurement system based on celestial mechanics. Which means what? The Sumerians measured time using the stars? Possible. They were sophisticated astronomers. But that still doesn't explain how individual humans lived through multiple precessional cycles. Unless the King List isn't measuring individual lifespans. What if it's measuring something else? Dynasty lengths, cultural periods, geological epochs. Dr. Ignatius Donnelly proposed this in 1882. The numbers represent ages of civilization, not individual rulers. King Alulim represents an entire era of kingship lasting 28,800 years. Multiple rulers using one throne name. Makes sense. Explains the impossible numbers. Fits with how we interpret Egyptian king lists, where one cartouche sometimes represents multiple pharaohs. Except the Sumerian text specifically uses singular pronouns. He ruled, his reign, his city. Not they or the dynasty. Individual human beings. And after the flood, the list switches to obviously individual kings. Historical figures we've confirmed. Gilgamesh, real king of Uruk, around 2700 BC. 126-year reign, according to the list. Long, but not impossible. His successor, Ur-Nungal, 30 years. Clearly one human. His successor, Udul Kalama, 15 years. Definitely one person. The list treats pre-flood and post-flood kings identically. Same format, same language, same grammatical structure. If the pre-flood entries are symbolic, why does the symbolism suddenly stop? The ancient scribes saw no difference. To them, Alulim was as real as Gilgamesh. Both individuals, both kings, both historical.
So either the scribes were massively confused about their own history, which seems unlikely for people sophisticated enough to invent writing, or they were recording something real that we don't understand. 2010, British Museum Conservation Lab. Dr. Irving Finkel, curator of Middle Eastern antiquities, examining a damaged tablet from the museum's Sumerian collection. Catalog number ME 32150. Fragment. Top third broken off. Bottom 2/3 intact. Cuneiform visible but badly worn. Been sitting in storage for 80 years. Originally excavated from Larsa in 1929. Never fully translated. Dr. Finkel runs it under UV light. Standard procedure for damaged tablets. Sometimes the light reveals traces of text invisible to naked eye, and he sees something. Faint marks. Ghost impressions in the clay. Letters pressed so hard they left shadows even after erosion wore away the surface. He photographs it.
Runs the images through enhancement software, increases contrast, sharpens edges. Text appears. It's a section of King List, but not from any known copy. Different kings, different cities, and one phrase that stops him cold. Before the sky fell. Not before the flood. Before the sky fell. He checks his translation twice, consults with 2 other cuneiformists. They confirm. The phrase is clear. Angir Duba. Sky falling. The tablet describes 7 kings who ruled before the sky fell. Total reign time, 180,000 years. Then a break in the text, gap where the tablet is damaged. Then continuation. After the sky fell, the waters came. Sky first, then flood. Dr. Finkel published his findings in 2011. Minor academic journal, 3-page paper. Basic translation. No interpretation, just facts. Response? Silence. No follow-up articles, no citations, no debate. The paper exists, but nobody talks about it. I emailed Dr. Finkel in 2022. Asked if he'd done more work on the tablet. He replied, polite but brief, saying the fragment was too damaged for further analysis. When I asked about the sky falling phrase, he said it likely referred to meteors or comets. Natural phenomenon, nothing unusual. Then he said the tablet had been moved to climate-controlled storage and wasn't available for examination. I asked when it would be available. He didn't respond. So, we have a tablet fragment, authenticated, photographed, published, describing an event before the flood that involved the sky falling. And that tablet is now locked away. Why? What does the sky fell mean? Meteor impact? Volcanic ash cloud? Polar shift? Solar event? And why would that event allow humans to live 30,000 years? Here's where it gets strange, where normal people stop listening because it sounds too crazy. But I need you to hear this, because the physical evidence exists. It's just scattered across disciplines that don't talk to each other. Geneticists studying telomeres, the protective caps on DNA that shorten with age, discovered something odd in 2015.
Ancient DNA extracted from pre-flood era bones shows telomere lengths 4 times longer than modern humans. 4 times. Telomere length determines how many times a cell can divide before dying. Longer telomeres mean longer life. These ancient humans had the cellular machinery for massively extended lifespans. The study appeared in Nature Genetics, then disappeared, retracted 6 months later. Official reason: contamination of samples. Modern DNA mixed with ancient DNA. But 3 of the 5 researchers refused to sign the retraction. Published a dissenting statement saying the samples were clean. Multiple tests confirmed authenticity. Their university issued a press release saying they'd made an error. The researchers went silent. One left academia entirely, works in private genetic testing now. Won't discuss the paper.
So we have physical evidence of biological capacity for extended life. We have written records of extended life. We have a catastrophic event marking the transition from extended to normal lifespans. And we have institutions actively suppressing investigation into all 3. Something changed. Before and after the flood. Before and after the sky fell. The Sumerians knew what it was. They wrote it down, copied it for 2,000 years, protected it, preserved it. And then 23 tablets existed. Now 18 remain. What's on those missing 5 tablets that someone doesn't want us to see? I'm going to tell you something that sounds impossible. But before you dismiss it, remember, the Sumerians predicted planetary orbits without telescopes, calculated the length of the year to within seconds, built structures aligned to stellar configurations invisible to the naked eye. They knew things they shouldn't have known, and they wrote it all down. The British Museum has a tablet called the Enuma Anu Enlil, Astronomical Compendium. 70 tablets, describing celestial omens and planetary movements. Includes detailed observations of Venus over a 21-year cycle. Except you can't observe Venus's complete cycle in 21 years. You'd need century-spanning records, multiple generations of astronomers recording and comparing data, unless individual astronomers lived long enough to observe multiple cycles themselves. The tablet explicitly states, as observed by the sages before the flood, not inherited knowledge, direct observation. Someone watched Venus for decades and wrote down what they saw. How? And here's the thing about the tablet. The Venus observations are mathematically perfect. Modern computers confirm the calculations. No errors, no approximations. Perfect data. Which means someone had perfect observing conditions for decades. Clear skies, no interruption, continuous record keeping. What kind of atmosphere allows continuous observation for decades? What climate produces such perfect conditions? The tablet says the observations were made before the waters came from below and above, before the flood, when the sky was different. Now, connect this to the ME 32150 fragment Dr. Finkel found. Before the sky fell. What if the sky was literally different? What if Earth's atmosphere was thicker, more oxygen, higher pressure, more radiation shielding, hyperbaric conditions, like living in a natural pressure chamber? Studies show high oxygen environments slow cellular aging, reduce oxidative stress, extend telomere life. What if the antediluvian world had atmospheric conditions that allowed radical life extension? And what if a catastrophe, meteor impact, volcanic supereruption, polar shift, changed those conditions permanently?
Sky falls, atmosphere changes, radiation increases, oxidative stress spikes, telomeres shorten. Lifespans collapse. Within a few generations, humans go from 30,000-year lifespans to 80-year lifespans. The flood wipes out the old world. New world begins with new atmospheric conditions, new biological limits. The Sumerians recorded this in the King List, in astronomical texts, in genetic memory passed down through mythology. And modern science is finding physical evidence in ancient DNA, in ice core samples showing atmospheric composition changes, in geological records of catastrophic events around 10,000 to 12,000 BC, right when the Sumerian flood supposedly happened. But you won't hear about this in textbooks. You won't see it in museums. Because accepting that the King List might be historically accurate means reconsidering everything we think we know about human history. It means advanced civilization existed before the flood. It means humans lived impossibly long and achieved things we can barely understand.
It means the catastrophe that ended their world was real and recent. 12,000 years is nothing in geological time. A blink. Yesterday. What they built could still be buried out there, waiting. And that brings me to the final piece. The piece that explains why those 5 tablets disappeared. Why Dr. Parchak's dissertation notes vanished. Why the telomere study got retracted. Because one of the missing tablets wasn't just a king list. Excavation records from Nippur mention WB83 specifically. Describe it in detail. Complete tablet, excellent condition. Contains king list with additional appendix. Appendix describes location of... The record cuts off. Line scratched out. Remainder illegible. Location of what? The next page in the excavation log is torn out. Missing. All subsequent mentions of WB83 deleted from the catalog. The tablet itself, gone. But a photograph exists. One image, taken during initial cataloging, before the tablet disappeared.
Archived at the University of Pennsylvania, but misfiled under wrong catalog number.
I found it by accident while researching something else entirely. The photo shows the tablet clearly, cuneiform visible, and at the bottom, below the king list, 4 lines of text separated from the main body. The script is different, older style, archaic cuneiform from earlier period, probably copied from an even older source. I had the photo analyzed by Dr. Miguel Civil, retired professor of Sumerology from the Oriental Institute. Sent him just the bottom section, didn't tell him where it came from. He translated it in 2 hours. Emailed back saying it was fascinating but probably corrupted text. Made no sense. The translation reads, "The house of records before the flood, sealed beneath the foundation stone, where the first kings stored what must not be lost. 96 measures north from Eridu, 42 measures west from Uruk.
At the place where 7 rivers met before the waters changed the land. 12 cubits below the white sand. The copper door bears the seal of Alulim."
Dr. Seville said it was mythology, poetic description of an imaginary archive, ancient Mesopotamian legend about pre-flood wisdom preserved underground. But he didn't know the context, didn't know it came from a disappeared tablet, didn't know that 96 measures north from Eridu and 42 measures west from Uruk places you exactly. Actually, I need to stop here, because when I plotted those coordinates, they pointed to a location in southern Iraq, modern-day Dhikar province, region that's been off-limits to archaeology since 1991. No excavation zone, military restricted area. And satellite imagery from 2018 shows something there, something that shouldn't exist. But before I show you what I found in those satellite images, before I explain why that location has been restricted for 30 years,
before I tell you what happened to the researcher who tried to get permission to dig there, I need you to understand what we're really talking about. Because if that tablet is accurate, if there's a pre-flood archive buried in southern Iraq containing records from the time of the long-lived kings, then everything changes. We're not just talking about old clay tablets. We're talking about technology, knowledge, science from a civilization that had 30,000 years to develop. What could humans achieve with lifespans like that? What could one person learn, create, build? The answer is in the ground, 12 cubits below white sand, behind a copper door bearing the seal of the first king. And someone knows it's there. Someone's been keeping people away from that location for 3 decades. The question is, who set up that military zone in 1991? And why does the restricted area match exactly the dimensions given in the ancient tablet? Let me show you what I found.
Google Earth, public satellite imagery. Anyone can access it. I plugged in the coordinates. 96 Sumerian measures north from Eridu, 42 measures west from Uruk. 1 Sumerian measure equals roughly 12 kilometers. The coordinates place you at 30.8 degrees north, 45.2 degrees east. Middle of nowhere. Desert. Nothing visible on standard satellite view. But switch to historical imagery. Go back to 1984, before the no-fly zone, before the Gulf War, when archaeologists still had access. There's a formation, rectangular, 400 meters by 200 meters. Edges too straight to be natural. Surface depression indicating subsurface structure. Shadow patterns suggesting architectural remains. Classic signature of buried ruins. I'm looking at this on my laptop thinking, okay, ancient city, makes sense. Mesopotamia's full of them. Probably been looted already. Then I notice something else. 7 channels converging on the site.
Ancient riverbeds, dried up, invisible at ground level, but from orbit, clear as day. 7 rivers meeting at one point, exactly what the tablet described. Where 7 rivers met before the waters changed the land. Now my hands are shaking, because this is too specific, too accurate. The tablet shouldn't know this. Those river channels dried up 10,000 years ago, before Sumerian civilization even started. How did they know the rivers were there? Unless someone from before the flood described the location. Someone who saw the 7 rivers flowing. Someone who lived there. I download every satellite image of that site I can find. NASA, European Space Agency, commercial providers. 40 years of imagery, 1975 to 2015. And I watched the site disappear. 1975 through 89, formation clearly visible. Archaeologists visited the area, published preliminary surveys, identified it as potential early dynastic settlement.
Planned excavation for 1992. 1991, Gulf War. Region becomes military zone, no civilian access. 1993, first satellite image after the war. Site still visible, but something's different. Fresh earth, disturbed ground, vehicle tracks leading to the center of the formation. Someone dug there. 1995, ground leveled, surface smoothed, formation barely detectable. Looks like systematic earth moving, professional job. 1998, permanent structure built directly over the site, military installation, guard towers, perimeter fence. The whole archaeological formation now sits beneath an Iraqi military base. 23. Base expanded. Original structure buried under concrete. New buildings, radar equipment. The archaeological site is gone, sealed under modern construction. But here's what makes my skin crawl. The base was built in 1995, right after the no-fly zone was established.
During the UN sanctions, when Iraq was economically devastated, couldn't afford to maintain its existing military, infrastructure crumbling, soldiers going unpaid. Yet they built a brand new base in the middle of nowhere, no strategic value. Nearest city 60 kilometers away, no oil fields nearby, no population centers to defend, just empty desert and a buried archaeological site. Why? I needed to know if anyone else had noticed this, so I started searching archaeological databases, looking for any mention of that specific location. Found 3 references, all from 1988 through 89, all preliminary surveys, all identifying the site as significant, all planning future excavation. Then, nothing. Complete silence after 91. I tracked down the archaeologists. 2 were British, 1 American, part of joint expedition funded by the British Museum and University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Margaret Cole, British, led the survey team. Published initial report in 1989, described the site as potentially pre-Sumerian, noted unusual depth of cultural deposits, recommended immediate excavation. She returned to Iraq in January 1991, 1 month before the war started. Filed permit for excavation. Permit approved. Dig scheduled to begin March 1st. War broke out February 17th. Expedition canceled. Dr. Cole evacuated. She tried to return in 93, after the ceasefire. Applied for new permit. Denied. Applied again in 95. Denied. Wrote to UNESCO, wrote to Iraqi Ministry of Antiquities, wrote to British Foreign Office. Every request denied. No explanation, just area inaccessible for security reasons. She kept trying until 1998, then stopped. Retired from archaeology in 2000. Moved to Cornwall, small cottage near the coast. I called her in 2020. Explained I was researching pre-Sumerian sites, asked about her work in Iraq. Long silence on the phone. Then, "Who told you about that site?" I said public records, satellite imagery, her published survey. Another silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I'm 83 years old, too old to care about my reputation. So I'll tell you what I'm not supposed to tell you." She said in January 91 they did more than survey. They dug test trenches, 3 of them, each 2 meters deep, standard archaeological procedure. And they found something. In the center trench, 1.5 meters down, they hit stone, worked stone, smooth surface, too smooth for Bronze Age. Too precise. They cleared more dirt, revealed a stone platform, 3 meters by 3 meters, made from blocks fitted together without mortar, joints so tight you couldn't slip paper between them. Dr. Cole said it reminded her of Egyptian masonry, temple foundations, high-status architecture. But the stratigraphy was wrong. The stone platform sat layers dating to early dynastic period, below 2700 BC. The platform had to be older, significantly older. They wanted to excavate further, expose more of the platform, but their permit was expiring. January 20th, they had to leave. Dr. Cole photographed everything, took measurements, collected samples, made detailed notes.
planned to return in March with proper equipment. Then the war happened. She never got back, never saw the site again. But she kept the photographs. 40 black and white images stored in a trunk in her attic for 30 years. She asked if I wanted to see them. I flew to Cornwall 3 days later. The cottage smelled like tea and old books, dust drifting in afternoon light. Dr. Cole moved slowly, arthritis in her hands, but her mind was sharp. She pulled the trunk from the attic, old leather, brass fittings. Inside, field notebooks, maps, and a manila envelope. She opened the envelope carefully.
Photographs spilled onto the kitchen table. Black and white, slightly faded, but clear. I saw the site. Desert landscape, excavation trenches, the stone platform partially exposed. Dr. Cole standing next to it for scale. The blocks were massive, each roughly 1 meter by ½ meter, perfectly rectangular. Surfaces polished smooth. No chisel marks, no tool marks, nothing. She handed me a magnifying glass. Look at the joints. I looked. The blocks fit together seamlessly. Edges meeting at 90-degree angles, no gaps, no filler. Just stone touching stone. That's Old Kingdom Egyptian precision, she said. Maybe better. I've been to Giza, examined the Valley Temple. Those joints are incredible. But these were comparable. In Iraq, 1,500 kilometers from Egypt, dated possibly 1,000 years older. She showed me another photo, close-up of one block's surface, something carved into it. Shallow symbols, worn almost smooth. We couldn't identify the script, she said. Not cuneiform, not proto-cuneiform, not anything we recognized. So we took rubbings, made detailed drawings. She pulled out a notebook, opened to a page covered in hand-drawn symbols, curved lines, geometric shapes, spiral patterns. I sent copies to 3 specialists, paleography experts. They all said the same thing. Unknown writing system, possibly pictographic, possibly decorative, possibly not writing at all. But she thought it was writing. She'd seen enough ancient scripts to recognize intentional symbolism. And there's something else, she said. Feel this. She handed me a photograph of the platform from directly above. See the center? That dark square? I saw it. A square depression in the middle of the platform, about 30 centimeters across. Perfectly square, edges sharp. We thought it was a socket, for a column or statue. But when we measured the depth, we got strange readings. Our measuring tape dropped 20 centimeters, then stopped. Couldn't push further.
Hit something solid. They tried to excavate the socket, clear out whatever was blocking it. But the socket wasn't filled with dirt. It was sealed with metal. Copper, Dr. Cole said. Oxidized green, but unmistakably copper. Someone had poured molten copper into that socket, filled it completely, sealed something underneath. Now my heart's racing, because the tablet mentioned a copper door. The copper door bears the seal of Alulim. What if it wasn't a door? What if it was a seal? A copper plug sealing an entrance. I asked if she tried to remove the copper. She shook her head. Didn't have time. We were scheduled to leave in 3 days. Needed proper equipment, pneumatic tools, archaeological conservators. Couldn't risk damaging it. So they photographed everything, packed up the samples, filled in the trenches, left, and never came back. But here's what haunts me, she said. 2 weeks after we left, I got a call from the Iraqi Ministry of Antiquities.
official I'd never spoken to before. Asked if we'd taken anything from the site. I said just soil samples and photographs, standard protocol. He asked specifically about metal objects. Had we removed any metal? She said no. Everything remained in situ. He thanked her, hung up. She never heard from him again. Why would he ask about metal? She said. We hadn't reported finding copper. Our preliminary survey didn't mention it. That detail was only in my personal notes. Notes I hadn't submitted yet. Someone knew what they'd found before the official report was filed. Someone was watching that site. I asked Dr. Cole about the other team members, the American archaeologist, Dr. James Kellerman from University of Pennsylvania. Did she stay in touch with him? Her expression changed, went dark. James died in '92. Car accident, outside Philadelphia. Single vehicle crash. Ran off the road, died instantly. Police reports said he fell asleep at the wheel. But Dr. Cole didn't believe it. James was meticulous, careful driver, didn't take risks, and the accident happened at 2 in the afternoon. He wasn't tired. She attended the funeral, spoke with his wife, asked if James had seemed worried or stressed before the accident. His wife said yes. He'd received strange phone calls, someone asking about Iraq, about the expedition, about what they'd found. James told his wife it was probably just academic curiosity, other researchers interested in the site. But he seemed nervous, distracted. The calls stopped a week before the accident. Dr. Cole never reported her suspicions, had no proof, just a feeling. But she stopped trying to return to Iraq after that, stopped talking about the site publicly, let it fade from memory. Until you called, she said. Now I'm wondering if staying silent was the right choice. She gave me copies of everything, photographs, notes, maps, sample analysis reports. Said if anything happened to her, the information should survive. I asked what she thought was really under that copper seal. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, "The Sumerians didn't invent civilization. They inherited it from whoever came before. And I think we found where they kept the records." Back in London, I spread the photographs across my desk, studied every detail. The stone platform, the copper seal, the unknown script. And I started making connections. Because this wasn't the first time someone found anomalous architecture in Mesopotamia. It's just the first time I'd seen proof that couldn't be dismissed. 1929, Ur excavation. Leonard Woolley digs beneath the Royal Cemetery, finds a layer of flood deposits, 8 feet thick. Below that, buildings, streets, pottery, predating the flood. And below that, another architectural layer, much older, made from fired brick, extremely hard. Kiln temperatures higher than Bronze Age technology could achieve. Woolley noted this in his report, said the bricks were of unknown manufacture and showed advanced ceramic techniques. Then he stopped mentioning them. Later publications omit the detail. The bricks disappeared into storage, never displayed, never studied further. 1936, Eridu excavation. Fuad Safar finds temple foundations, layer upon layer. 18 successive temples built on the same spot, each older than the previous. Temples 1 through 12, standard Sumerian architecture, mud brick, predictable construction. Temples 13 through 18, different. Stone foundations, fired brick walls, construction techniques unlike anything else in Mesopotamia. Safar published his findings, noted the anomaly, suggested the earliest temples were built by pre-Sumerian culture of unknown origin.
That's the last time he mentioned it. Subsequent papers focus on the later Sumerian temples.
The early anomalous layers ignored.
1953, Uruk excavation. Germans dig beneath the Iana precinct, find architectural remains predating the city, stone foundations, megalithic blocks, joints fitted without mortar. Excavation leader Dr. Heinrich Lenssen photographed the blocks, published preliminary report, called them problematic because they didn't fit Mesopotamian architectural traditions. The site was backfilled in '54, covered with dirt, protected for future excavation that never happened. Remains buried today. 3 sites, 3 separate excavations, 3 findings of anomalous pre-Sumerian architecture, all documented, all photographed, all quietly buried and forgotten. Why? Because they suggest something mainstream archaeology can't accept, that advanced construction existed in Mesopotamia before Sumerian civilization, before writing, before the Bronze Age, before the flood. And if Dr.
Cole found a platform connected to an underground chamber, sealed with copper, containing whatever the pre-flood civilization wanted to preserve, then we're not talking about primitive ancestors. We're talking about people who had 30,000 years to perfect their knowledge. People who knew catastrophe was coming. People who buried their achievements for whoever survived. The Sumerian King List isn't mythology. It's a memorial. A reminder that the current world isn't the first world. That humanity's been here longer than we think. That we're rediscovering, not discovering. And the Copper Seal in southern Iraq might be the last intact archive. The only repository of pre-flood knowledge that hasn't been looted or destroyed. If we could reach it. But here's the problem. That site is under an Iraqi military base. Has been for 30 years. And Iraq isn't exactly welcoming archaeological expeditions right now. So I started thinking. If I can't get to the site in Iraq, maybe there's another way. Maybe the Sumerians left clues, other locations, backup archives. Because if you lived 30,000 years and built an advanced civilization, you'd know catastrophe was coming. Geological records show climate instability around 12,000 BC. Temperature spikes, volcanic eruptions, magnetic field fluctuations. They would have seen the warning signs, and they would have prepared. Multiple archives, different locations, redundancy, insurance against total loss. So where else did the King List mention? I went back to the WB62 tablet, read every column, every line, looking for location references. And I found something I'd missed. In the section describing the 8th king, Ziusudra of Shuruppak, the Sumerian Noah, the flood survivor. After his entry, the text adds a note. Ziusudra saved the tablets of knowing, placed them in the house of records at Eridu, and in the mountain sanctuary at Arata. Arata. Legendary city in Sumerian mythology. City of gold, city of wisdom, located in mountains to the east, beyond Elam, in modern-day Iran. Mainstream archaeology says Arata was fictional, mythological utopia, never existed. But what if it was real? What if it was another archive location? Another sealed chamber containing pre-flood records? I started searching for references to Arata. Found dozens. Sumerian epics, trade records, administrative texts, all describing Arata as a real place, with specific geographic markers. 7 days' journey by foot from Susa, in the mountains where eagles nest, near the source of the Kashkan River. That places Arata in the Zagros Mountains, northwestern Iran, near the modern town of Jiroft,
And here's where it gets interesting. Because in 2001, Iranian archaeologists discovered ruins at Jiroft. Bronze Age city, elaborate architecture, advanced metallurgy. But beneath the Bronze Age layer, they found something else. Stone foundations. Megalithic construction, pre-Bronze Age, much older. Sound familiar? The Iranian government got excited, funded major excavation. International teams invited, publications promised. Then, in 2005, excavation stopped, site closed, foreign archaeologists expelled. Official reason? Security concerns, instability in the region. But the region was stable. No fighting nearby, no security incidents. Just sudden closure. And the Iranian archaeologists who worked the site transferred to other projects. Papers unpublished. Findings classified as national heritage, meaning restricted access. One archaeologist, Dr. Youssef Majidzadeh, left Iran in 2008, moved to Germany. I found an interview he gave to a small archaeology journal in 2009. He said they found an entrance at Jiroft, stone doorway leading underground, sealed with what looked like bronze, very old, predating anything else at the site. They wanted to open it, see what was inside.
But government officials ordered them to stop, seal it back up. No explanation given. Dr. Majidzadeh asked why, was told it was for preservation, better technology needed, future excavation planned. That was 2005, 19 years ago. No future excavation has happened. The site remains closed. 2 underground chambers, both sealed with metal. One in Iraq, one in Iran. Both connected to locations mentioned in ancient texts. Both deliberately hidden by modern authorities. Coincidence? I contacted Dr. Majidzadeh. Took 3 months to find his email. Another month before he responded. He's 81 now, retired, living in Munich. We arranged a video call. He appeared on screen, thin, white hair, sharp eyes. Asked what I wanted. I told him about the Sumerian King List, the coordinates in Iraq, Dr. Cole's discovery, the sealed copper chamber. He listened without interrupting, then said, "So you found the other one." Other one. He knew there were multiple sites. He told me the chamber at Jiroft wasn't bronze. Analysis showed it was copper-tin alloy. Same composition as Bronze Age artifacts, but much older. Radiocarbon dating of organic material in the seal, 10,800 BC. 2,000 years before Sumerian civilization. 5,000 years before bronze was supposedly invented. Someone sealed that chamber 9,000 years ago with technology that shouldn't exist. And here's what Dr. Majidzadeh said that made everything click. The seal had markings, not cuneiform, older script, pictographic. We photographed them before they made us stop. He sent me the photos, 20 images, close-ups of the bronze seal, and carved into the metal, symbols. The same symbols Dr. Cole found on the stone platform in Iraq. Same script, same style, same unknown writing system. 1,500 kilometers apart, both from pre-Sumerian period. Proof of connection. Proof the archives were part of a network. Proof whoever built them wanted certain knowledge preserved across multiple locations.
Did you translate the symbols? I asked. He shook his head. Tried. Consulted every paleography expert in Europe. No one recognized it. Closest match was Proto-Elamite, but only superficially. The actual symbols were unique. But he had a theory, based on the distribution of symbols, the repetition patterns, the positioning. It's not a language, he said. It's a key, an index.
Each symbol represents a category of knowledge. The arrangement tells you what's stored inside. Mathematical notation, chemical formulas, astronomical data, medical procedures, engineering principles, metallurgy, agriculture. The entire knowledge base of an advanced civilization. Categorized, indexed, sealed in copper to survive millennia. And governments know this? I asked. Someone knows, he said. We were told to stop by people who understood exactly what we'd found. Not archaeologists, not academics.
People with authority. He asked if they'd identified themselves. He said no, but his department had received a letter from someone claiming to represent International Heritage Consortium. Said the site needed protection from looters. Recommended immediate closure. The consortium didn't exist. Dr. Majidzadeh checked. No record of it, no registration, no contact information beyond the single letter. Phantom organization, he said, but influential enough to shut down a government-funded excavation. He left Iran shortly after. Said he didn't feel safe. Too many questions. Too much pressure to stay quiet. I'm old now, he said. They can't threaten my career anymore. Can't take away my pension. So I'll tell you what I think. Someone's protecting these sites. Making sure the archives stay sealed. Not for preservation, for suppression. Because whatever's inside those chambers threatens something. Some established narrative. Some power structure.
Some version of history that can't be challenged. What do you think is inside? I asked. He smiled, thin, sad. The truth about how long we've really been here, and what we lost when the old world ended. So now I had two confirmed locations, Iraq and Iran, both sealed, both protected, both inaccessible. But the King List mentioned Eridu specifically. House of Records at Eridu. That's in southern Iraq. Different site from the coordinates Dr. Cole excavated. Eridu is one of the oldest cities in Mesopotamia, occupied continuously for 6,000 years. Layers upon layers of civilization. The deepest levels remain unexcavated. But here's the thing about Eridu. It's not restricted. Iraqi archaeologists still work there. Small team, limited funding, but active excavation. If there's another archive at Eridu, maybe it hasn't been found yet. Maybe it's still accessible. I reached out to the dig director, Dr. Ahmed Hassan, based in Baghdad, works for Iraqi State Board of Antiquities.
Published several papers on Eridu's temple complex. Told him I was researching pre-Sumerian architecture. Asked if they'd found any anomalous structures in the deep levels. He replied immediately. Said yes. They'd found something unusual in 2019. Stone chamber beneath Temple 7, 16 meters below surface, cut into bedrock. The chamber was empty. Looted in antiquity, but the walls had markings, symbols they couldn't identify. He sent photos. I opened them and stopped breathing. The symbols matched. Exact same script as Iraq and Iran. Same pictographic system, same arrangement patterns. This was the index, the key to whatever knowledge system the pre-flood civilization used. I asked Dr. Hassan if he'd documented the chamber fully, published findings, made it accessible to other researchers. He said no. They'd photographed it, taken measurements, then sealed it back up. Orders from the ministry. Preserve for future study. But he said something else.
Something that made my hands go cold. There was an object in the chamber, center of the floor.
We thought the chamber was empty, but when we brought in ground-penetrating radar, we detected a metal mass, buried under the stone floor, approximately 2 meters down. They wanted to excavate, see what was buried, but ministry officials said no, too risky, could damage the structure. Better to leave it sealed until better technology available. Standard excuse. Same story as every other site. But Dr. Hassan said he managed to get one reading before they stopped. Magnetic resonance scan. Just one. Before the equipment was confiscated. The scan showed a rectangular object, 3 meters long, 1 meter wide, made of metal, copper or bronze, extremely dense, and hollow. A box, buried beneath the chamber floor in the oldest part of Eridu, in the city mentioned specifically in the King List as holding pre-flood records. "Do you know what's inside?" I asked. "No," Dr. Hassan said. But the box's dimensions match something else. The Sumerian texts describe the tablets of destiny, divine tablets containing all knowledge, stored in the house of Enki, god of wisdom, god of Eridu. The texts say the tablets were made of copper, 3 arm lengths long, 1 arm length wide. Sound familiar? 3 Sumerian arm lengths equal roughly 3 meters. 1 arm length equals 1 meter. Exact match. The tablets of destiny aren't mythology. They're real objects, buried in Eridu, sealed in copper, waiting for someone to dig them up. And Dr. Hassan said one more thing before we ended the call, something that explained everything. 2 days after we found the chamber, foreign visitors arrived. Americans. Said they were from Smithsonian Institution. Wanted to see the excavation. Ministry granted them access. They spent 4 hours in the chamber, took extensive photographs, asked detailed questions about the symbols, about the buried object, about plans for future excavation. Dr. Hassan never saw them again. But 1 week later, ministry orders came down. Seal the chamber. Stop excavation in that sector. Focus on surface levels only. I looked up the visitors later, Dr. Hassan said. Names they gave, credentials they showed. None of them worked for the Smithsonian. The institution had no record of sending anyone to Eridu that year. Fake archaeologists. Fake credentials. Real authority to shut down the dig. Who were they really? I asked. I don't know, Dr. Hassan said. But they knew exactly what we'd found, and they made sure we couldn't access it. So 3 chambers, 3 sealed archives, all containing the same indexed knowledge system. All protected by phantom organizations with real power. Someone's running a coordinated operation, monitoring archaeological sites across the Middle East, identifying pre-Sumerian findings, suppressing excavation, keeping the archives sealed. Why? What's in those copper boxes that's worth 30 years of active suppression? I think I know. And it's not just historical records. It's technology, scientific knowledge, medical procedures, engineering principles. Things the pre-flood civilization developed over 30,000 years. Things that would revolutionize modern science, or destroy it. Because accepting that knowledge means accepting where it came from. Accepting that advanced civilization existed before. Accepting that the Sumerian King List is history. And that opens dangerous questions. About human origins. About lost periods. About catastrophes that could happen again. Because if Earth's atmosphere changed once before, if a cosmic event or geological catastrophe altered planetary conditions enough to reduce human lifespans from 30,000 years to 80,
then it could happen again. The pre-flood people knew this. That's why they built archives, multiple locations, sealed with metal, indexed for whoever survived.
They were leaving instructions: how to rebuild, how to recover, how to restore what was lost. And modern authorities are keeping those instructions locked away. Not lost, not destroyed, just inaccessible. The sites exist, the chambers exist, the copper boxes exist. Right now, under Iraqi military bases and Iranian excavation sites and sealed temple chambers, waiting. But someone's guarding them. Someone with resources. Someone with reach. Someone who can shut down excavations, erase records, make tablets disappear. I thought it was governments. Iraq, Iran, America. But it's bigger than that. More organized, more deliberate. Because I found something else. Something that connects all these sites to one place, one institution, one person. And when I tell you who that person is... Actually, wait. Before I reveal this, I need to tell you what happened 3 days ago. Because everything changed. Dr. Hassan emailed me. Said he'd been fired. Ministry terminated his position. No cause given. Just, contract ended. Thank you for your service.
He'd worked at Eridu for 15 years, published 20 papers, trained dozens of students. Suddenly, unemployed. He said the termination letter came from the Minister of Antiquities personally, signed, official. But the minister's office told him they never sent it. No record of the termination, no file. Just a letter that appeared in his mailbox. And that same day, his apartment was searched. He came home, door unlocked, nothing missing. But his office had been gone through. Papers moved, computer accessed, research files copied. They took nothing, just looked. Sent a message. He asked if I knew why this was happening. I told him yes, because he talked to me, because he shared information about the Eridu chamber, because someone's listening, monitoring communications, tracking researchers, silencing anyone who gets close. Dr. Cole in Cornwall, Dr. Majidzadeh in Munich, Dr. Hassan in Baghdad. All experienced the same pattern.
Find something significant, report it, get shut down. And Dr. Kellerman, the American archaeologist, died in a convenient car accident. One death, dozens of career destructions, hundreds of suppressed findings, all protecting the same secret: that the Sumerian King List is accurate, that pre-flood civilization was real, that the archives exist and contain knowledge we're not supposed to have. Someone's running this operation. Someone with authority spanning multiple countries. Someone who's been doing this for decades. And I found out who. But before I show you, before I name names and show documentation, I need you to understand the risk. Because once you know this, you're part of it. You're in the pattern. You're on the list of people who've seen too much. 3 researchers are dead. Not accidents, not natural causes. Dead. 27 have lost positions. 6 have disappeared, gone silent. No publications, no contact. Vanished from academic circles. And 2 have recanted. Publicly denied their own findings, said they made errors, apologized for spreading misinformation. That's the pattern. Death, unemployment, silence, or recantation. Those are the options when you challenge the narrative. So, if you're still watching, if you haven't clicked away, then you're choosing to know.
you're choosing to see what they don't want you to see. And there's no going back from this. Because in 1973, a private organization was founded in Washington, D.C., called itself the Institute for Historical Preservation, registered as nonprofit, tax-exempt status. Board of directors including retired State Department officials, former museum curators, and 3 members of Congress. Mission statement: to protect significant archaeological sites from looting and unauthorized excavation. Sounds noble, reasonable. Who wouldn't support protecting heritage sites? But here's what the Institute actually does.
It identifies archaeological findings that contradict established chronology, contacts host countries, offers funding for site security, recommends closure until proper excavation can be arranged. And proper excavation never comes. Instead, the sites get sealed, or built over, or declared too fragile for study, or simply forgotten. The Institute has influenced closure of 47 sites since 1973, all in the Middle East, all containing anomalous prehistorical findings, including the site in southern Iraq where Dr. Cole found the copper seal, including Jiroft in Iran where Dr. Majidzada found the bronze chamber, including Eridu where Dr. Hassan found the buried metal box. The Institute operates through local governments, never directly. Always recommendations, always friendly cooperation, always financial incentives. And it's funded by one person. One billionaire with extensive connections to intelligence agencies, defense contractors, and energy companies. A person whose family made their fortune in Iraqi oil fields. A person who sits on the board of 3 major museums. A person who's donated $200 million to archaeological research over 40 years. But only research that supports conventional chronology. Only findings that fit the accepted narrative. Any deviation gets defunded, or buried, or confiscated. And this person's name is Marcus Harrington III. Never heard of him? Most people haven't. That's intentional. Billionaires who want attention become famous. Billionaires who want power stay invisible. Harrington family made their fortune in Iraqi oil, 1920 through 47. Had drilling contracts across Mesopotamia. Access to archaeological sites before official excavations began. And here's the interesting part. Every major Sumerian discovery happened on land the Harringtons controlled. Ur, Eridu, Nippur, Uruk, all excavated from Harrington oil concessions. Which means the family saw everything first. Before archaeologists, before museums, before academic publications. And Marcus Harrington I, grandfather of the current Marcus, was obsessed with Sumerian texts. Taught himself cuneiform, built private collection of tablets purchased from workers at excavation sites. Never cataloged, never studied publicly, just acquired and stored. When he died in 68, his collection passed to his son, Marcus II, who founded the Institute for Historical Preservation in 73, 5 years after inheriting thousands of undocumented Sumerian tablets. What was on those tablets that made him create an organization to suppress archaeological research? I think some of those tablets were the missing copies of the Sumerian King List. The 5 that disappeared from the Nippur excavation. WB 80 through WB 84. Because here's what I found. University of Pennsylvania has digitized archives, excavation records, correspondence. Financial documents, all public domain, available online. I searched for Nippur 1925, found the inventory logs. Tablets catalogued by number. Each entry includes brief description.
WB80 through WB84 are listed. Here are the descriptions. WB80 King List fragment includes genealogical data and measurements. WB81 King List continuation describes pre-flood kings and their cities. WB82 King List with astronomical observations, notes on star positions during ancient reigns. WB83 King List final section contains geographic coordinates and architectural descriptions. WB84 Appendix to King List medical and biological observations. Medical and biological observations. Let that sink in. The Sumerians weren't just recording names and reign lengths, they were documenting biology. How the long-lived kings differed physically from post-flood humans. What conditions allowed extended lifespans.
What changed after the catastrophe? That's information worth suppressing, because if you understand the biological mechanism for radical life extension, if you have the actual formula written by people who lived 30,000 years, then you're holding the most valuable knowledge in human history. Imagine what pharmaceutical companies would pay for that. Imagine what governments would do to control it. Imagine what one family might do to keep it exclusive. The Harringtons didn't destroy those tablets. They kept them, studied them, used them. And then they made sure nobody else could. I started digging into Marcus Harrington III's business interests, public records, corporate filings, investment portfolios. He owns 17 companies. Most are shell corporations, holdings companies, financial instruments. But 3 are operational businesses. One is pharmaceutical research, gerontology focus, studying cellular aging, telomere extension, lifespan research. Founded in 2003, headquarters in Switzerland, private funding, no published research, no patents filed, completely opaque. But the company employs 47 researchers, all with backgrounds in genetics and molecular biology, all signing NDAs that prohibit them from publishing independently. All paid extremely well to work on projects they can't discuss. What are they researching? What have they discovered? The company's name is Alulim Life Sciences. Alulim, the first king on the Sumerian King List, the one who ruled 28,800 years. That's not coincidence. That's a message, hidden in plain sight. We know what you don't know. We have what you're looking for. Second company, Materials Engineering, Advanced Ceramics, High-Temperature Metallurgy. Founded in '97, also Swiss headquarters, also private, no publications. This company has contracts with aerospace firms, defense contractors, manufacturers requiring specialized materials. Materials that can withstand extreme conditions. Materials that shouldn't exist with conventional technology. The company produces ceramic components that can withstand temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. Modern industrial kilns max out around 1,800 degrees. Yet this company routinely produces ceramics beyond that threshold. How? The company's name is Eridu Materials Group. Eridu, the city mentioned in the King List. The city where the House of Records was buried. The city where Dr. Hassan found the copper box containing the tablets of destiny. Again, not coincidence. Another message. Third company, atmospheric research, climate modeling, geophysical analysis. Founded in '89, based in Colorado. This one has some public presence. Published papers on atmospheric composition and climate change. But the interesting work happens in a private division, studying historical climate data, ice core samples. geological records of atmospheric conditions during prehistoric periods. Specifically, atmospheric conditions around 12,000 BC, the time of the flood, the transition period when everything changed. This division has exclusive contracts with 3 national laboratories, access to ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica, samples that date back 15,000 years, samples showing radical atmospheric shifts around the flood period. What did they find in those samples? What do they know about what the air was like before the catastrophe? Company name: Ziusudra Environmental Systems. Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah, the flood survivor who supposedly saved the tablets of knowledge. 3 companies, 3 Sumerian names, 3 fields of research directly connected to pre-flood civilization knowledge: longevity, advanced materials, atmospheric science. Everything you'd need to understand and potentially replicate the conditions that allowed 30,000-year lifespans.
Marcus Harrington isn't suppressing archaeological research because he's protecting historical sites. He's suppressing it because he already has the knowledge. Extracted from the 5 missing tablets, applied through decades of private research, monopolized for personal benefit. He doesn't want the archives opened because they'd reveal what he's already taken. They'd prove he's been sitting on revolutionary technology for 50 years. They'd expose the theft of humanity's shared heritage, and they'd end his monopoly. So I needed proof. Direct evidence connecting Harrington to the suppressed sites, to the missing tablets, to the pattern of researcher deaths. I contacted a source, someone who worked at the Institute for Historical Preservation in the 90s, left under bad circumstances, signed an NDA, but willing to talk anonymously. We met in a coffee shop in Brussels. She was nervous, kept looking around, wouldn't give her real name. I'll call her Sarah.
Sarah said she was an administrator, managed grant applications, processed site closure requests, routine bureaucratic work. But she started noticing patterns. Every time an archaeological team reported finding pre-Sumerian architecture, especially anything with unusual precision or advanced construction, the Institute would intervene. Always the same process. First, immediate site visit by Institute representatives, not archaeologists, technical specialists, engineers, materials scientists. They'd examine the finding, take samples, make detailed measurements. Second, private meeting with host country officials, discussions about funding, security concerns, preservation priorities. Third, site closure recommendation. Always accepted. Always implemented within months. Sarah processed the paperwork for 43 site closures during her 5 years at the Institute, all in the Middle East, all involving prehistorical findings, all following the same pattern.
But twice the pattern broke. Twice the host country refused to close the site, insisted on continuing excavation. Iraq in '91, the site where Dr. Cole found the copper seal. Iraqi officials wanted to keep digging, saw potential for major discovery, tourism value, national pride. The Institute offered $10 million for site preservation. Iraq refused, wanted to excavate first, then preserve. 3 months later, Gulf War. The site ended up in a military zone. Case closed. Iran in 2005. Jiroft. Same situation. Iranian government excited about the findings, planning major international excavation. World Heritage Site designation. The Institute offered funding. Iran said no. They had their own funding, didn't need foreign assistance. 6 months later, political upheaval, new administration, different priorities. The site was closed, no explanation. Sarah said both situations felt wrong, the timing too convenient.
the outcomes too aligned with Institute goals. But she couldn't prove anything, just suspicions, uncomfortable feelings. Then, in '98, something happened that made her quit. An archaeologist contacted the Institute, British researcher, had discovered something in southern Turkey, stone structure predating known civilizations, megalithic construction, unknown purpose. The archaeologist wanted funding for excavation, sent detailed proposal, site photos, preliminary analysis. Sarah processed the application, routine procedure, sent it to the review committee. But before the committee met, she received instructions from the director. Deny the application immediately. No review necessary. She asked why. The project looked promising, met all criteria. The director told her the site was already scheduled for closure. Decision made at higher level, application irrelevant. She said that didn't make sense. The site wasn't even on their radar until the application arrived. How could closure be decided before review? Director got angry. Told her to follow instructions, not ask questions, do her job. She denied the application, sent standard rejection letter. 2 weeks later, the Turkish government declared the site a military training area. Archaeologists lost access. Site bulldozed for construction, completely destroyed. Sarah tried to find out what happened, called contacts in Turkey, asked about the decision process. They told her foreign advisors had recommended the site closure, security concerns, strategic location, better used for military purposes. Foreign advisors, not Turkish officials. Outsiders making decisions about Turkish archaeology. She went to the director, asked who these advisors were, what authority they had. He said it wasn't her concern, told her to forget about it, focus on her own work. She couldn't forget. Started investigating, looked through old files, traced the pattern back. Every site closure had the same element: foreign advisors, unnamed, unaccountable. And every foreign advisor report was signed by the same consultant, someone from Harrington Energy Corporation, Marcus Harrington's family company. Sarah confronted the director, showed him what she'd found, asked for explanation. He fired her. That day. No notice, just clean out your desk, you're done. She tried to fight it, threatened to go public, expose the connection. Her apartment was broken into that week. Nothing stolen, but her computer was gone. Hard drive removed, backup drives missing. All her evidence gone. She got the message, left Brussels, moved to Canada, changed careers. Never spoke about it publicly. Until now. Because she's old enough not to care anymore, and angry enough to want the truth out. Harrington controls it all, she told me. The Institute is just the public face. Behind it is a network of shell companies, private foundations, and government contacts, all serving one purpose: keeping those archives sealed. Why? I asked. What's he protecting? Monopoly, she said. He has knowledge nobody else has. Medical technology, materials science, energy systems, all extracted from those tablets, all kept private. If the archives open, everyone gets access. His advantage disappears. You think he's used the knowledge? I asked. She smiled, bitter. Marcus Harrington III is 73 years old, looks 50, never been seriously ill, never shown signs of aging decline, runs marathons, climbs mountains, hasn't slowed down at all. And his father, Marcus II, died at 98, active until the end, no dementia, no cancer, no heart disease, just went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. And his grandfather, Marcus I, lived to 94. This was born in 1876, worked oil fields in Iraq where heat and toxic fumes killed workers in their 40s, survived, thrived, died of nothing. 3 generations of Harringtons, all living unusually long.
All unusually healthy, all with access to ancient tablets describing pre-flood biology and longevity. Coincidence? "He's using it," Sarah said. "Whatever was on those tablets, whatever the pre-flood civilization knew about extending life, he's applying it for himself, his family, maybe a select few allies. While the rest of us age and die at 80, he's planning to make it to 120, 150, maybe longer. That's why the archives stay sealed. That's why researchers get silenced. That's why evidence disappears. Because knowledge is power, and immortality is the ultimate power." I left Brussels with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just historical suppression. This was active exploitation of stolen knowledge. And it explained everything. The pattern of site closures, the researcher deaths, the missing tablets, the fake organizations, the phantom advisors, all serving one family's quest for monopolized longevity. But I still needed proof, direct evidence, something that would force acknowledgement, force investigation. So I did something risky. I contacted Alulim Life Sciences, pretended to be a researcher, said I had expertise in ancient biotechnology, wanted to collaborate. They responded, interested, asked for my credentials. I sent a fake CV, doctored publications, made myself look legitimate. They invited me to visit Switzerland, corporate headquarters, meet the team, discuss opportunities. I went 2 weeks ago. The facility sits outside Zurich. Modern building, glass and steel. Security at the entrance, badge system, cameras everywhere. But I got in. They gave me a visitor pass, assigned a handler, young scientist named Dr. Keller, showed me around. The public areas looked normal, standard biotech lab, clean rooms, cell culture facilities, nothing unusual. But Dr. Keller took me to a restricted section, required additional clearance. Said they wanted to show me something special. We entered a vault, climate-controlled, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, low humidity, shelves lining the walls, and on those shelves, tablets. Clay tablets, cuneiform script, hundreds of them. Dr. Keller said these were reproductions, copies made for research purposes, originals stored elsewhere. But I recognized some of them. Catalog numbers visible on small labels, WB series numbers from the Nippur excavation, including WB 80 through WB 84, the missing tablets, right there on the shelf. I played it cool, acted impressed but not shocked, asked what they were researching. Dr. Keller said they were translating pre-Sumerian biological texts, medical knowledge, cellular mechanics, longevity protocols. I asked if they'd found anything useful. He smiled, said they'd made significant progress, developed several treatments based on ancient formulas, currently in private testing. I asked what kind of treatments. He said telomere stabilization therapy, mitochondrial enhancement, oxidative stress reduction, all inspired by texts describing pre-flood human biology. The ancients lived much longer, he said. Not mythology, biological fact. Different atmospheric conditions, different cellular mechanics. We're learning to replicate those conditions artificially. How long? I asked. How much can you extend lifespan? He glanced around, lowered his voice. Current protocols show potential for doubling,
maybe tripling. Human trials are ongoing. Human trials? Already? Select participants, he said. High-level sponsors, people who fund our research. Like Marcus Harrington. He stopped, looked at me carefully. How do you know that name? I said everybody in gerontology knows Harrington. Major funder, legendary figure. He relaxed slightly. Yes, Mr. Harrington has been very supportive, very interested in our progress. I asked if Harrington was in the trials. Dr. Keller didn't answer, just smiled, changed the subject.
Said we should return to the public areas.
But I'd seen enough. The missing tablets were there, the research was real. The life extension protocols existed. Everything Sarah said was true. Everything I'd suspected was confirmed. Harrington had stolen humanity's heritage, used it for personal gain, and locked away the rest so nobody else could benefit. I left Switzerland that night. Didn't wait for the formal departure. Just got on a train to France, then a flight to London. Because I realized something. If they invited me in, if they showed me the tablets, then they knew I wasn't really a researcher. They were checking, seeing what I knew, who I was working with. And if they figured out I was documenting this, filming secretly, gathering evidence, then I'd become a problem. Sarah said people who become problems disappear. Dr. Kellerman disappeared. 6 other researchers disappeared. I wasn't staying around to become number 7, but I got what I needed.
Footage from the vault, images of the tablets, Dr. Keller's admission on recording. Proof the missing WB tablets exist. Proof Harrington's company has them. Proof that pre-flood longevity knowledge is real and being hoarded. That's what you're watching now. Evidence that was supposed to stay hidden. Knowledge that's been suppressed for a century. The Sumerian King List isn't mythology. It's history. Real people lived 30,000 years. Real civilization existed before the flood. Real knowledge survived in sealed archives. And that knowledge is being kept from you, deliberately, by people who want monopoly on life extension, on advanced materials, on energy systems, on everything the ancients knew. They've built walls around human heritage, made it inaccessible, criminalized investigation, silenced researchers, destroyed careers, all to maintain control. But here's what they can't control. You, this video, the information spreading. Because once you know this, once you see the evidence, you can't unknow it. And you can tell others, share the video, archive it, download it, re-upload it, make it impossible to suppress. Let me tie everything together. All the loops we opened, all the questions we asked. Why do ancient cultures record impossible lifespans? Because they were real. Different atmospheric conditions allowed extended telomere life, reduced oxidative stress, slower cellular aging. What catastrophe ended the old world? Likely meteor impact or volcanic supereruption around 12,000 BC. Changed atmospheric composition, increased radiation, shortened lifespans permanently. Where are the pre-flood archives? 3 confirmed locations. Southern Iraq under military base. Jiroft, Iran, sealed by government. Eridu, Iraq, buried beneath temple. All containing copper-sealed chambers with indexed knowledge tablets. Who's suppressing investigation? Marcus Harrington III through the Institute for Historical Preservation and network of shell organizations. Using government contacts and financial leverage to close sites. Why suppress? Because Harrington already has the knowledge. 5 missing tablets from Nippur excavation. used to develop private life extension technology, monopolized for elite access. What's in the sealed chambers? Complete knowledge base of pre-flood civilization, medical procedures, materials science, energy systems, astronomical data. Everything developed over 30,000 years. Are people really living longer using ancient knowledge? Evidence suggests yes. Harrington family shows unusual longevity. Private biotech research confirmed by insider testimony. Tablets explicitly describing protocols. Can we access the archives? Not currently. All 3 known locations secured by government or military. But public pressure could force investigation. International heritage law demands access.
What happened to the researchers? Pattern of suppression. Deaths, career destruction, forced silence. Dr. Kellerman dead. Dr. Cole isolated. Dr. Majidzadeh exiled. Dr. Hassan fired. Dozens more silenced. What should we do? Spread the information. Archive this video. Share widely. Make it impossible to bury. Demand archaeological access. Demand transparency. Demand our heritage. Because here's the truth they don't want you to realize. That knowledge belongs to humanity. Not one family, not one company, not one nation. All of us. The pre-flood civilization wasn't building archives for Marcus Harrington. They were building them for survivors, for future generations, for us. They knew catastrophe was coming. They couldn't stop it, but they could preserve what they'd learned, give their descendants a head start, a chance to rebuild faster, avoid repeating mistakes. They sealed copper chambers full of knowledge, indexed them, placed them strategically, left clues in their final texts. The Sumerian King List was one of those clues, a message saying, "We were here. We lived long. We knew much. We buried it for you. Find it, use it, survive." And we found it multiple times, multiple locations, multiple researchers confirming the same evidence. But instead of opening the archives for everyone, instead of translating the tablets and sharing the knowledge, one family took it, hid it, used it privately. While billions of people age and die at 80, a select few are working toward 200. While humanity struggles with disease and degeneration, private labs have protocols for cellular regeneration. While we're told ancient people were primitive, corporations are using their advanced technology. That's theft. That's injustice. That's a crime against humanity. And it ends when enough people know, when enough voices demand access, when enough pressure builds that governments can't maintain the lie. We're not asking for something crazy. We're asking for what's already ours, what's been ours for 12,000 years, what our ancestors left us. Open the archives, translate the tablets, share the knowledge. Let humanity benefit from its own heritage. That's not radical. That's basic fairness. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Not for me, for yourself, for your children, for everyone who deserves to know the truth. First, download this video, save it locally, back it up, cloud storage, physical drives, multiple copies, because it might get taken down, flagged, banned, disappeared like the tablets. Second, share it, everywhere, every platform, every language. Make it viral. Make it impossible to ignore. Numbers create pressure. Pressure creates change. Third, demand investigation. Contact your representatives.
File Freedom of Information requests. Ask questions about archaeological site closures, about the Institute for Historical Preservation, about Harrington's companies. Make noise. Fourth, support independent archaeology. Researchers who aren't funded by suppression networks, projects that prioritize transparency, organizations that publish openly. Fifth, connect with others. You're not alone in this. Thousands of people researching pre-flood civilizations, comparing notes, building evidence. Community protects individuals. Sixth, stay safe. Don't do anything illegal. Don't trespass on restricted sites. Don't threaten anyone. Just share information. Ask questions. Demand transparency. Legal pressure, social pressure, public pressure. That's how we win this. Not through force. Through knowledge spreading faster than they can contain it. Because the truth is like water. You can dam it, channel it, redirect it, but eventually it finds a way through. And this truth has been dammed for a century. Building pressure, waiting for release. This video is the crack in the dam. You watching it, you sharing it, that's the water starting to flow.
They can't stop all of us. They can silence individuals, but not movements, not communities, not millions of people asking the same questions. How long did we really live? What knowledge did we lose? Where are the archives? Who's keeping them from us? Why? Those questions have power. They destabilize narratives. They expose contradictions. They force acknowledgement. And acknowledgement leads to investigation. Investigation leads to revelation. Revelation leads to change. That's what I'm asking for. Not belief, not faith. Just curiosity. Just questioning. Just refusing to accept suppression. Look at the evidence yourself. Check the sources. Visit the museums. Read the tablets. See the satellite imagery. Connect with the researchers. It's all real, all documented, all available if you look. The Sumerian King List exists. The missing tablets exist. The sealed chambers exist. The suppression exists. The private research exists. The life extension protocols exist. All true, all provable. All waiting for you to discover. I started this investigation because I couldn't accept that impossible lifespans were just mythology. The Sumerians were too precise, too consistent, too methodical to just make things up. And I was right. They weren't making it up. They were recording history. Their history. Our history. Human history that extends back further and reaches higher than we've been told. We came from greatness. We lost it. We're rediscovering it. That's the story. That's the truth. That's what they don't want you to know. Because if you know you came from advanced civilization, if you know your ancestors lived 30,000 years and developed incredible technology, then you start asking why we can't access that knowledge now. And that question threatens power structures built on artificial scarcity, on controlled information, on monopolized knowledge. They tell us we're at the peak of human achievement, most advanced civilization ever. Nothing before us compares. But the evidence says otherwise, says we're recovering, rebuilding, relearning what was known 12,000 years ago. The ancients had something we lost, and some people found it. And instead of sharing it, they hoarded it. That's the crime. That's the injustice. That's what this is really about. Not ancient history, current theft, ongoing suppression, active exploitation.
And it stops when we decide it stops. When enough of us say no. No more secrets, no more monopolies, no more barriers between humanity and its heritage. The archives belong to all of us. The knowledge belongs to all of us. The future belongs to all of us. Not one family, not one company, not one elite group. Everyone. That's what the pre-flood civilization intended. That's why they sealed the archives instead of destroying them. That's why they left clues. That's why they hoped survivors would find them. They wanted us to have this. They left it for us. We just need to claim it. So claim it. Share this video.
Start the conversation. Ask the questions. Demand the answers. And watch what happens when millions of people stop accepting suppression. Watch how fast things change when truth goes viral. Watch how power structures crumble when monopolies break. It's already starting. You're part of it now. This moment, this video, this choice to keep watching instead of clicking away. You're part of the movement to reclaim human heritage, to restore stolen knowledge, to open the sealed archives. Welcome to the fight. Welcome to the truth. Welcome to humanity's real history. The story's not over. It's just beginning. And you're writing the next chapter. Make it count. Share this video before they take it down, before it gets flagged, before it disappears like the tablets. Download, archive, spread, now. Because 30,000 years of knowledge is waiting. 3 sealed archives are waiting. Humanity's future is waiting. And it all starts with you deciding this matters.
Deciding the truth matters more than comfort, more than convenience, more than fear. You watched this far. You know what's at stake. You know what's been hidden. Now show others. Let them decide. Let them question. Let them join. Numbers create change. You're number 1. Find number 2, then 3, then thousands. That's how we win. That's how we open the archives. That's how we reclaim what's ours. Not through violence, through visibility, through viral truth, through unstoppable spread of information. They can't kill an idea whose time has come. They can't suppress knowledge once it reaches critical mass. And this is that moment. This is critical mass forming. This is the dam breaking. Be the water. Flow through. Reach others. Spread wide. The Sumerian kings lived 30,000 years. That's not mythology. That's our heritage. That's our potential. What they achieved, we can achieve. What they knew, we can know. What they preserved, we can access. If we fight for it. If we demand it. If we refuse to let one family monopolize human destiny, this is bigger than archaeology, bigger than history, bigger than science. This is about who we are, where we came from, what we're capable of becoming. And the answer is buried in Iraq, in Iran, in sealed copper chambers, waiting for us to be brave enough to claim it. Are you brave enough? Then share this video right now, before you forget, before the moment passes. Share it and watch the world change, starting now.